Well, I don't know about you, but when I started out back in 2004, I was 6 years old, and we didn't really have data as we now have it today. It was just a simple, lap time counter. Like, was it like Micron? Was it Alfano? I can't remember. Pretty sure it was Micron. But anyways, we just only looked at the lap times, if anything, the RPMs. I don't think we even looked at the EGT and etc. So we were just basically looking at RPMs and lap time. But I didn't even remember like looking at RPMs. I think just my mechanic was, but it was so archaic the way we were working. It was just so much based on experience and opinions from mechanics and from team managers, and it wasn't really about having facts. It wasn't really about knowing exactly from the data where you had to improve. And so this is very funny. I remember lots of stories. My mechanic telling me, oh, I take with the stopwatch. I took the sectors. We are losing 2/10 down the straight, so I guess we're just too short on this sprocket. We need to go longer one sprocket to get more top speed. But you never would know if it was just a matter of sprocket, if it was a matter of carburation, whether it was just a matter of just pure engine, or maybe we had some problem with the chassis that we just had too much drag on the straights, or maybe it was just me. I wasn't getting a good exit from the corner before. So it was so much based on opinion, and we would just work on the chassis, on the go-kart, trying to make it faster. But again, based on opinions, we never would have had the certainty of what we were doing was actually going in the right direction. So I think this was quite common, I would say, and many people can relate to that. It was still a luxury to have the lap time counter, just that. And by the way, there wasn't really the GPS on the thing, on the lap time counter. There wasn't GPS. It was basically you had to insert a number of sectors on the track, and basically through a magnetic sensor, it would basically read that. All right, I don't know exactly how to say that in English, but anyways, in Italian we say bande magnetiche. Basically, you had to put, like, if the track had 2, you had to put 2. If you had 3, or 3. If it was messed up, like, you couldn't even take the lap times. Nowadays, just based on satellites from the GPS, and it just does it automatically. So there was all these sort of things, and you were just looking at the lap times, and that was just your target was to improve the lap times as much as possible. I mean, it still is to this day, but you would never really have a guidance. Like, how awesome would it be, like, from early on they would have explained you how to brake, how to use the maximum brake pressure, how to look at the longitudinal G's from the telemetry software, and be able to say, okay, now you see your braking is only 70% of the karting potential, so you're not on the limits, stuff like that. How cool would it have been, or looking at the RPMs, you would have seen that you're hitting the limiter too early, and therefore you're probably too short on the sprocket, or you're not even hitting the limiter at all, so probably you're too long on the sprocket. I think there wasn't even the limiter when I started out in Mini. Yeah, I think there wasn't. Yeah, probably started that like later. But anyways, yeah, all these sort of things, and even the racing lines, well, it was just like track maps. All right, so you would just be track maps, your mechanic explaining to you just like with a pencil or with a pen, just like drawing the lines on the track map, and was like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. We had to learn like that. And I can't even remember using GoPros. Like, I think I didn't get to use a GoPro since 2010. So I was like, back then I was 12. So that was like later last year in Mini. Yeah, that was quite quite remarkable. Like, we didn't use video. It was just like pure driving. You had to just like find the lap time yourself by feeling. I mean, from a certain point of view, that was also great, because you had to do your own telemetry, like I describe it. Like nowadays, when I talk to drivers, I'm like, okay, guys, you guys. We are all a little bit spoiled, you included and me included, because like when we go on the track now, we can know exactly where we have to improve by looking at the data the session afterwards, especially if we have a great teammate to compare against. But the point is that you should also do your own telemetry analysis when you're driving, which is the most difficult thing to do, because that's what you need to do if you want to arrive at the pinnacle of motorsport. Ideally, if you want to get to Formula One, I'm sure you have to have the skill. All right, I haven't been there. Unfortunately, I can't tell you. I just got up to F2. I'm pretty sure you have to be at that level where you have to basically, from a lap to lap, adjust your driving based on the feedback that you had from the lap before. Think about it. You go through a corner. That's why you qualify. Your first 2 laps, you're warming up the tires. Then lap 3, you push and you arrive, and you basically feel like, oh, there's I'm not on the limit there. I don't feel like I'm gonna go off the track if I push more. So, well, then you just have to memorize all these things. It's very important. You have to memorize all the things through the lap, and then the next time you go through that lap, for that specific corner, you have to basically retake the memory from the lap before and update your driving. It's awesome, isn't it? It's like you have to. It's really difficult, but it's also so challenging, and that's what makes racing so special to me, you know. And this is the great thing, you know. It's not like a robot car that does it, like drives automatically and it knows exactly the grip. That we are not robots, and thankfully. But the thing is that you have to judge the grip level of the track and the grip level of the tires, so of the go-kart. So the grip level of the kart and the grip level of the track, and combine them, all right, so that you can carry the right amount of speed into a specific corner in the specific like entry phase on the brakes, in the center of the corner, in the middle, or in the exit. All right. So you need to be able to get the highest amount of speed through a corner, through all of the corners, to make the ultimate fastest lap compared to the others. And this was really like just doing telemetry in your head and trying to, you know, to see where you were losing. You just had to stay behind some drivers and trying to assess, okay, well, he's gapping me in the slow corners. Therefore, it probably either has more skills. No, I'm joking. Either he has a bigger sprocket, all right, or maybe he set it up more for twisty sections where he needs to maybe a little bit more front, all right. Whereas if you were losing in the high speed corners, maybe you just need to have a little bit more balance, like overall maybe a little bit less front and more rear support. And if you were losing in the fast section, therefore maybe you were losing because your sprocket wasn't long enough, etc. So all these things, like you had to basically go and follow the fastest drivers. And in fact, if you were the fastest driver, which happened to me lots of times, I would say a big majority of times, I would say, you would get a pile of drivers trying to keep up with you and trying to get a selection from you so that they would understand, not only you but also the mechanics. Because the thing is that when the mechanics, they are taking the lap times, you're driving with 35 other drivers on the same circuit, like in free practice, and the mechanics are always aware of who's the fastest. They're trying to always ask between mechanics, oh, who's the quickest? They take the lap times. All right, they see, okay, Alessio is the fastest, Mark is the fastest, Joe is the fastest. All right, then what they'll see, okay, first of all, they'll take the splits against you, and they'll be like, okay, it seems like we're losing in the slow corners, in sector 1 maybe, or we're fast in sector 2, but we lose also in sector 3. All right, then the next thing they do is like, okay, they're trying to send you, they call in the pits or in the session after, they just send you behind the kit, that guy, and you try to keep up with them so that you can see also visually where he's gapping you. So you can see not only in terms of driving lines, but also in terms of setup adjustments, what to do. And that's a very common thing. And obviously, if you are that kind of driver that they're all chasing you, it's quite annoying. In fact, many things you would sandbox. Basically, we go slow until quali, let's say. You just like go with like 1-2 sprockets down, or with more weight, which they also do in F1, by the way. It's very common. Like nobody would really care about you. Let's say you're a bit of the underdog because nobody knows your true potential. But then when the time comes, bam, you just go for it. And it happened to me quite a few times. So it's very nice to go with surprise, going for pole position, or going to win the race. Anyways, I don't want to digress. But the point being is that in the past, yes, you could really. You really had to do the telemetry by yourself. Okay, so you had to look at the drivers when you were driving, but also when you were staying on the stands. So maybe you were, there was 2-3 sessions, and you were in the third session. You would go and check the first 2 sessions and check what they're doing, check their lap times, stuff like that. So you would know once you were going on in the session, you would know pretty much what their level was. And this is awesome. That was I think this is kind of being missed right now, and it's a bit of a shame, to be honest, because I like that old style kind of racing, like lots of like commitment, dedication, and like taking the lap times. I rarely see any driver now taking lap times from other drivers, which to me is quite upsetting, because it should happen. So it's something that we've lost, but we try to put it back, because you need to know what your competitors are doing in terms of lap times at any time, and you just need to know who are the strongest driver, and you need to just look at the session. So many times now drivers are just like playing with their phones up until 2 minutes before the session, and then they're just going into the session, and they don't know, they just forget everything that's being told about you, like from mechanics, from coaches, from data guys. So yeah, I think this is a little digress. I didn't want to make too long, but anyways, going back, nowadays we have really this opportunity to look at data, and all of these things are so accessible to us that I believe it's a bit of a pity and a waste not to take a full advantage of that. In fact, if you don't do that, other drivers will, and basically you're giving the advantage to them. All right, so as I always say that it's like a soccer game. You know, if you're 0-0 and then they score, then they're 1-0, and then you're one behind, you're losing. Right? So if they're using data, you're not, they're 1-0, they're winning on you. Vice versa, if you're doing the data and they're not, well, then you're 1-0 to them. If both use the data, you're 1-1. If none uses the data, that data is 0-0-0. But I think that's very unlikely. So you know for sure that the fastest driver will use data. You know, very very strong teams in juniors use data. You know, teams like Car Republic, Forza Racing, Fusion, also Ricky Flynn. They all use data very 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 well. And obviously we do it as a team as well. You know, we have 3 data guys, including myself, because I obviously work a lot on the performance side, doing video analysis, data analysis with the kids, trying to find the extra bit of performance from every session. So we are 3. You know, it's a lot. It's but because we put a lot of importance towards that, and we always want the drivers to put the hard work in so that they can be the best versions of themselves. So yeah, I truly believe this to be important. I just wanted to show you this story about the past, because yeah, sometimes we just truly forget about how easy and accessible data is nowadays, whereas in the past it wasn't. So I feel like we are all a little bit more spoiled today. It's like all too easy for us. You just press a click, you just download everything, you have the data, and it's like magic. You can see your RP. Like still to this day, I'm 26. I've done lots of years on the track, and I'm lots of years outside of the track. Well, like on the track, but like not driving myself, like just following the team, following BabyRace. But yeah, every time I open up a data, I'm always like excited. I'm always looking for ways to get faster. You know, and that's also quite cool and interesting when you have a driver, be it yourself, like myself, or maybe just any driver from the team that is struggling. Maybe it's like alpha second off and you don't know what it is. And again, visually there can be lots of things. Maybe visually it's just like, the first thing that one would think, especially being a dad, would be, or the driver themselves, would be, oh, the engine. The first thing that would come to mind is the engine. But then the second thing would be, oh, the chassis. Then the third thing would be, oh, the driver. But then you go into the data and it's the other way around. So the biggest problem is the driver. The second biggest problem maybe is a little bit the chassis, and then the third problem is the engine, right? So it's like reverse. But you go from opinions to facts, and obviously when you have the data, you don't have a breakdown like that. Oh, okay, 60% of the problem is the driver, 30% is the chassis, and 10% is the engine. We don't have that, unfortunately, right now. I mean, if you have a software that can do that, please let me know in the comments. I'll be interested to try it, but we don't find ourselves yet in that position to have like such specific breakdown. But if you start to see, okay, with the lap time is being lost on the corners, then we have to be focusing on the corners. Let's say we're talking about alpha second. You see 4.5 tenths are being lost in the corners, being too slow, minimum speed, or like braking too early on poor exits, stuff like that. Then it's either the chassis or it's the driving. That's it, one of the two. You can't blame the engine for being slow in the corners, in a minimum speed. No chance. Unless it's not. No. There's no way. On the straight, vice versa, if you're losing time, well, yes, it's probably something related to your engine, or maybe it's something related to the way you exit the last corner, or maybe you are doing brake and gas, maybe in quite a lot of corners, and then you're overheating the engine, and just like the engine then doesn't have the performance to pull down the straight. Or sometimes it's just even that if you look at the throttle trace, maybe you pick up the throttle too late, on the exit you just pick up the throttle too late, or too soft, or compared to a driver that goes aggressive and early compared to you. So all these sort of things. Or maybe you just don't have the slipstream. Maybe you're on the straight, like you're losing a couple of tenths from the reference because you don't have the slipstream, and they are perfectly glued behind another driver. So there's so many factors to consider, but that you'll find them when you look at the data, and that's why I keep talking about this. Like, data doesn't lie. Data is key, and again, it unveils the truth. And it shows a light on the real, what's really happening, and you go from opinions to facts. And to me, this is the everything you need to go fast nowadays and also in the future. So make sure you put more focus on data analysis. Remember, 20 years ago we weren't able to do that. It was funny. It was very interesting to work to drive like that, but now it's so cool. Like even when you go on the simulator, I mean, unless you already are going to the simulator, being like Formula 4 simulator, Formula 3 or whatever, or maybe you have a simulator in your home. You know, like sim racing is getting very popular nowadays. And when you're in the sim, you just look at the Motec or any other software, and you basically again look at the where you're losing, and it's so cool, especially if you have the reference point or the reference files from the fastest drivers. It's so cool. You can know exactly where you're losing, and yeah, I think that's awesome. And you couldn't do that in the past. You couldn't do that in the past with in karting. So yeah, having this luxury is cool, but you need to take advantage of that. Otherwise, it's just a waste of potential.